Among the many features in your cPanel is an important one called the File Manager. File Manager is found right here next to this icon and under the Files section. If we click on this link, we can go to the File Manager. The File Manager is probably one of the most important and powerful features in cPanel. However, File Manager won't help you much if you don't have at least a basic understanding of your website's file structure. In other words, the difference between files and folders. Folders are sometimes called directories, and where they should be on the server. Right now, we're looking at the upper level of our hosting account, the part that we would consider the very top or the highest level you can go to. You wouldn't want to go above this level, and you couldn't. These folders that we're looking at on our web hosting account are important because they're put there by the server, so we'll call them system folders or system files. The folder or directory that's called the public HTML is the one where your website is going to be stored. If you're using a single domain account, or if you have a multi-domain account, this is where your primary domain is stored inside the public HTML. Now, if you're using a multi-domain account and you have what are called add-on domains, we'll talk about that in a different video. For the sake of simplicity, we're just going to look at a single domain account. And your website is always going to be stored inside that folder or that directory called the public HTML. In File Manager, even though the icon doesn't look like a folder, that's still what this is. It is a directory. And by double-clicking on it, we go inside that folder. So while you're working in File Manager, not only is it important to understand what you're looking at, but it's important to understand where you are in the structure. So we've gone down one level. We were at the top level. Now we've gone down into the level of the public HTML, where our website files are stored. In my case, I'm using a WordPress website. And so these are all WordPress files. And normally, if you're using WordPress, you have very little reason to come into the File Manager because you're designing your website online. But if you happen to be using an offline editor where you generate your HTML files with software on your computer and you need to upload them to the server, the File Manager has a way for you to do that. And that's why it's here. That's why there's an upload feature. You can actually upload files from your computer onto the server. But again, it's important to know where they go. The other thing you're going to want to be careful with in the File Manager is moving things around or deleting things. You would never want to delete a system folder, especially the ones in the upper level. If we go back up one level, you'd never want to delete any of these. A good way to destroy your website, basically, would be to delete the public HTML folder. If you did that, the hosting company would need to reset your account. So the point is, these are all important, and you wouldn't want to mess with them. But let's go back down into the public HTML folder and look at what we have here. Now, since I'm using WordPress, I don't really have any reason to change things, but this is important to know where things are. If you ever wanted to upload a file or upload a file into your own directory that you have created, or maybe you want to install a script. You've purchased a third-party script and it requires you to upload files into a particular part of your website. That's where the File Manager is really important and really handy. So we'll do a simple example of how to do that. First, let's look at some of the navigation. As you can see, we can add a new file. That means I can literally create an HTML file on this server if I wanted to. I can actually technically build a website right here. It might be a little tricky unless you know how to code, but you could do it. We can also create folders, also called directories, and we can upload to this area. Now, right now, these are the only options that are available because of where I'm at. But as I select files, these options would change. For example, if I wanted to edit this README file, this is an HTML file, as you can see. If I select it, you'll notice I have a lot more options up here. I could literally edit this file and even use an HTML editor to edit it if I wanted to. Let's click on that just to see what happens. That's a pretty safe file for us to play with. First of all, it gives me a warning. It says, now, are you sure you want to do this, in so many words, showing me the actual file that I'm going to be editing, where it's stored. It's a file called readme.html, which is inside the public HTML folder. Let's talk about that for just a minute, because public HTML means that's the folder where your website is. So while this is called a path to this file, the URL to this file is actually mydomain.com/readme.html. That's the difference between a path and a URL. A path is the location on the server where the file is stored, but the URL, that's the link. That's where we can actually go to in a browser and access that file. You can think of the public HTML as a replacement for yourdomain.com, basically, when you're looking at the URL version of the path. Now, this sounds like it's nitpicky, but it's a really important concept, and it'll make more sense as you understand your file structure. So it gives me a few warnings and says, are you sure you want to edit this file? I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm not going to make any changes, just to show you what it looks like. So as we click edit, it actually brings up an editor. We can actually edit this file and even change the code if we wanted to, and save those changes accordingly. Now, as I said, I'm not going to, but this is where you would do it if you needed to do that. It's a great editor too. It's very visual and allows you to work kind of like as a word processor, except you're editing a website file. But I'm going to close this by simply closing the tab and go back to the File Manager interface. Let's try something else. Another thing you can do is you could actually create a folder or directory in your website. Now remember, I'm inside the public HTML folder, and I'm going to create another folder inside that. If I was to go back up to the upper level and create a folder here, there would be no way for the public to access this folder because we'd be outside of our public HTML. In other words, if I create a folder here and call it My Folder, it really doesn't have any use to the public because it doesn't have a URL. There is no URL to this. There's a path to this folder, but only I could get to it, and I'd have to go through File Manager or some other FTP program like this. Since it's not inside the public HTML, I can't reach this folder by going to mydomain.com. I'm going to delete this folder because I don't want to create this. So I select it and click the delete. Are you sure you want to delete this? I can move it just to the trash if I want to and delete it later, but I'm going to go ahead and skip the trash because I know I want to permanently delete this. I'll click confirm, and now that folder's gone. Again, be very careful if you're deleting anything in this area. But let's go back inside the public HTML and let's create a folder again. This time I'm going to call this folder My eBooks because I want to store ebooks inside this folder. Notice it's telling me where my new folder is going to live. It's going to live inside the public HTML. So let's create the new folder. I now have a folder right here inside my public HTML, which means not only does it have a path, which is public HTML / my ebooks, but it also has a URL. That means we could visit this folder in a browser. We could go to https://mydomain.com / my ebooks because we created that directory. But right now it would be empty, so there's nothing in it. Let's double click and go inside. Okay, so now we're inside an even lower level. Not only are we inside the public HTML, but we're also inside the My eBooks directory. And I always know where I'm at if I look up here at the path right here. Now inside this folder, I want to put an ebook so people can download the ebook. So I'm going to upload a file to this directory. And that's what the upload feature is for. I'm going to click upload. And here I can either select a file by browsing through my computer until I find the file I want, or File Manager makes it really easy. I can actually just drag and drop a file from my desktop or my computer right into this box, and you'll see that it uploads the PDF. Now the name of my book is called smb_book.pdf. It's actually called the Social Media Blueprint, but the name of the file itself is smb_book.pdf. That's going to be important in just a minute. So let's go back to where we were, and here's a quick link to that. Again, we're still inside the directory that I made, My ebooks, which is inside the public HTML folder, which means this is going to have a link or a URL. And the name of the file is smb_book.pdf. So this translates to a hyperlink. That means I can send people to the URL of this file. And here's what it looks like. It's going to be https://mydomain.com /myebooks /smb_book.pdf. I have to have all those characters with no mistakes, no spaces, and that would be the link to my ebook. This concept is misunderstood by many, but a really critical part of managing your website structure. Knowing how files are nested inside directories and how even directories are nested inside directories is what creates the URL syntax. In fact, let me give you an example. Since we're inside the My eBooks folder, this is what would happen if we created another folder in here. I'm going to click this button, and just for the sake of argument, let's call it another folder. Now, when I do that, notice that I've created a folder inside a folder. It's perfectly fine to do that, but it's also important to know that you're creating a URL that's affected by this path. Inside this folder, there's nothing. But let's put an ebook in here. I'm going to upload that ebook again, that same one, just because it's nearby. I've uploaded the PDF. Let me go back to the file manager. Now, again, I'm inside the new folder called Another Folder, which is inside my other folder called My eBooks, which is inside my public HTML. So now the link to this file would actually look like this: https://mydomain.com/myebooks, because we're inside that folder, /another folder, because we're also inside that folder, /smb_book.pdf, because we're now at the file. And this is how URLs are created, and how files and folders and directories can be nested inside each other. And it's important to know where things are stored. But let's go ahead and get rid of this. Instead of deleting this, I'm going to go up one level, and I'm just going to delete the whole folder, because when I do, it'll delete the contents of this folder as well. So I'm selecting it, clicking delete, and it's saying, are you sure you want to do this? Because deleting is kind of a big deal, but it's telling me exactly what I'm deleting. Are you sure you want to delete the directory called Another Folder, which is inside My eBooks, which is inside your public HTML? And of course I do. So I'm going to click this and go right to permanent deletion. I'll confirm that. And so now that folder and its contents are gone. Now I'm left with my eBooks folder with my PDF document. So this is an example, but it's a very common example of how you would use your file manager to upload files, create directories, and manage those files. For advanced users, again, you can even edit the HTML code or add HTML files to your file structure. But it's a great feature and an important feature and part of your CloudWire hosting account.